Recently, Welsh musician James Kennedy announced via social media that he was rejoining the Green Party after a brief fling with Labour. Musician producer James is the singer-guitarist in alternative rock band Kashira. James has been releasing music both as a band member and solo artist since 2002 and is currently preparing to tour with his new lineup, James Kennedy and the Underdogs. I met up with James in the studio recently to welcome him back and discuss politics, music, COVID and much more. Maybe we could start with, because you recently publicly announced that you'd rejoined the Green Party. You want to expand on possibly why you came back or why you joined in the first place? Or?
Well, I've been a member for many years. You know, I politically stand in what would traditionally be a Labour sort of perspective. You know, I'm from South Wales and from a very lefty sort of background, working class family. So all of the values that I believe in would traditionally have been, you know, with the Labour Party, and they were until New Labour came along and, you know, destroyed the party and basically effectively killed the Labour Party. So I became a member of the Green Party as a result of that, basically, sort of the Tony Blair era. So I've been a member for years. And then I think when the Corbyn zeitgeist came along, it was too much of an important moment happening there. I've got to join this movement as it's happening now because it's a very real chance of getting some of the values that I stand for into power. So it was purely, I left only purely just to sort of throw my weight and, you know, support behind the Corbyn campaign. And then obviously when that didn't happen, I had to sort of come crawling back with my tail between my legs to the Green Party. But it was never a matter of chasing the winning team or anything like that. It was always about the policies and, you know, what I felt was a very real chance of getting a party in power that could actually, you know, beat the Tories on that platform. And then when the Labour Party did what the Labour Party does, which is eat itself, I came back. But I'm here to stay now. I'm not going anywhere.
And you're very welcome back. On the whole COVID and the lockdown thing, I think one of the things that's quite ironic almost, for a lot of people it highlighted the importance of music, art, culture, you know, when people were locked in their own homes and relying on that. So it reminded people of the importance and the value of that, something that's quite often taken for granted in a sort of free market capitalist society. While at the same time, some of the things you've touched on, the people creating this stuff, a lot of them were left on the scrap heap with no support really. And for me it highlights that as a society these things aren't valued enough, and I think that's something I'm quite proud of in the Green Party as well, that we recognise it can't always be about pure monetary value.
I was going to mention the fact that if we had a universal basic income, which is something that you guys are a big proponent of as well, you know, that would have softened the blow during a time like we've just lived through with COVID. And if we had that, you know, then my friends wouldn't have happened to be, you know, smashing their hands up on cold building sites and stuff like that. You know, I mean, because the arts, they're not valued in the right sense. I mean, we do live in this kind of economic mindset where everything is valued in the sense of its economic value, whatever, you know. But the arts, I mean, you know, it's an essential part of living for all of us, you know, and which we realised during the lockdown. It's like air, we need it. It gets us through the day. It's a soundtrack to all of our life, you know, not just music, but, you know, all of the arts. It's so essential, and we're so good at it in this country as well. Everybody loves it. It's in everybody's life and benefits everybody's life, but there's just no support structure there for the people that create the stuff. I mean, you know, especially in music, it's so hard to make money now. Even bands, you know, that are on the radio, that maybe many people's favourite bands, they got no idea those guys are working in call centres, you know, Monday to Friday, which most of them are. How much does it really mean to people? You know, and if we can't rely on the government or the powers that be to actually, you know, provide some kind of safety net for the people that create this essential service for all of us, then what can we do about it, you know?
As we move out of that, because there was a lot of excited talk in some circles when the first lockdown, that this was all about doing things differently. You know, people were commuting less, people were flying less, the air quality got slightly better, and there's a lot of optimism that things would change afterwards. We'd learned some lessons, and that's kind of evolved into a very cynical, build back better coming out of the mouths of all politicians. What do you think we need to see from elected leaders? What sort of change do they need to be implementing as we move out of this strange period?
In terms of what we can look for in the government, not much, I don't think, until we get rid of the current kind of monopoly And I think that includes the Labour Party. They don't speak for us anymore. As somebody that's interested in the sort of things that actually affect everyday people's lives, I think for me, as somebody with the sort of ideals and values and interests that I've got, that's going to have to come from the Green Party.
Now, you're absolutely right to highlight the grassroots stuff and vital that is, and anti-fracking campaigns, all these sort of things. But again, as you identify, we need systemic change, and that's why we're a political party. Well, we've touched on how the industry's been affected by the COVID crisis, but equally going on in pre-COVID, we've got this scenario where places like Cardiff and Newport, we're losing at an alarming rate, are losing small independent music venues. How is that impacting in real terms on people in the industry?
Massively. I mean, it's the small independent local venues where the next iconic band comes from. These bands don't fall out of the air. They cut their teeth in the small local venues, and that's where they get good. And that's how they get spotted, and that's how they climb the ladder. So without that, that's a massive part of our cultural life, essential cultural life that is being rapidly eroded. I mean, you look at Newport or Cardiff, there's like literally, you can count on one hand how many actual original venues are still standing. People still have this hardwired lust for live music, but it's too easy with a covers band, to make a living. But it's so much more difficult for an original band, to start out without these local independent venues. There are issues like gentrification and booze taxes going up all the time. Higher rents. Issues with noise and stuff like that in inner city venues. There are all of those issues at play. But ultimately, if people aren't going to these venues, the business can't survive just on a pure supply and demand basis. And that, as much as I hate to say it, is a real problem. Like I'm friends with a lot of club promoters and owners and stuff like that, and they've all said we're just not getting the numbers in. So they've got to start getting covers bands in. They've got to start getting tribute acts in, or DJs or club nights, just to keep the doors open. So again, I mean, we can blame a lot on the government, and we can blame a lot on the council. We can blame a lot on gentrification or the evil landlords. But if people aren't going to these places, then the places can't stay open. If we want a certain kind of society, whether it be it, musical or in terms of social justice or whatever the issue, then we can't just look upstairs. We've got to get involved ourselves as well. So if you want to keep these venues open, you've got to turn up.
What is your take on Exile?
I support them. Yeah, I mean they supported my new song, which is good.
You scratch my back.
Yeah, exactly. No, I support it, man. I mean, there's always the risk with radical movements like that they're going to get things wrong sometimes, or overstep the mark sometimes. But I mean, that's the price you pay, isn't it, for the kind of action that they do, which is essential really on the causes that they're fighting for.
Yeah.
There's no clean way to fight that fight. So.
And I think that because we're a party that, at its core, we believe in non-violent civil disobedience. So as long as it stays on that side, we're very much with Exile, but not of Exile as a party.
I'm the same. Yeah.
It goes back to that thing that they do a really good job. They have done a really good job, along with people like Greta and the School Strike for Climate, of highlighting the issue, making people aware that this issue is on our doorstep now. But it still comes back to that thing that we've got to get people elected. The time scale with climate emergency and the nature emergency, we've got to get people elected to enforce that change.
It's, again, like we said, it's not just a governmental solution. There are things that we can all do, but unfortunately, some of the big structural and institutional changes will have to come through government. Will have to come through law. I mean, do you think that the current guys are going to do that? There's not a chance. And the Labour Party are too busy fighting amongst themselves and trying to climb the greasy pole. It's not going to happen. For me, the only viable option I see for that is the Green Party. That's been a long-standing central pillar of what the Green Party has always stood for. Way before the other parties started saying it for brownie points. I know I'm talking to a Green Party, leader here, but I mean, I honestly believe that. That's why I joined the party initially, and that's why I came back as well. It's the only party. If we're going to push through these issues, obviously, the environmental issue that we're currently talking about, but all of the other essential things that this society and this country needs that actually benefit all of us, not just the 1%. The only viable option I can see is the Green Party.